3d6 down the line.
Okay, that was episode 109 in the books. Our first Delve Detox in quite a while. But these guys are all jazzed up on what happened, so take it away.
Oh, that was I gotta say, I don't want to be too sweet because fuck you guys. But one, even though we played last week, I don't know why, but this felt like almost like just it's been ages. I was so goddamn excited this time. I don't know why.
I was here.
You were really sick.
No,
you were really sick last week. We can tell.
Maybe it's the cold. I mean, I was very tired. I literally told the group before the session, and I was like, guys, I'm low energy. Like I'm here for it. I'm excited. I'm low energy. And yet we jumped in and I was just like, like the game overrode, baby. So I love
maybe
you.
Just a masochist. He gets intense joy out of like.
Maybe that's what it is. I mean, no one will be surprised by that, right? Like David in pain means, but no.
I was gleefully expecting you to level up and then immediately die. Like I thought you were done.
He did his best. He did his best.
He really tried.
His face was melting off. I was like, "That's it. He's fucked. Bye."
Yeah.
Let's speak behind the curtain a little bit. I did not think that egg would be as bad as a consequence as it was.
I thought it was going to be very bad.
I thought it would probably explode in some spiders or like some like Hecate thing would come out, and it would probably put me down and around because that's my HP, right? I did not expect a burning acidic sentience to do it, right?
That turns you into this goo.
Yeah.
Which is so fucking cool. So to your point, Mike, I did chase the level up death a little bit, right? It's a little exciting. It's a taste of danger, but not in that way. I didn't think I was committing as hard as I was, right?
I gotta say, I thought John rooked me on that because he had a smile on his face. Like when I was like, I'm just gonna shoot at John, he was like smiling, and I was like, oh, I literally was like, it's full of gold now. David, go find it.
Well, and here's what I'll say in my defense. When y'all said, oh, there's probably just treasure in there, I did have a moment where I was like, well, I was going to let him shoot it. I was like, well, maybe there is just treasure in there. Maybe this is a red herring. Maybe I'll just stick the dagger in there instead of really wondering.
Well, when you made the decision, David, to actually be the one to go up there and interact with it, that's what tipped the, like, initially up to that point, it was going to be Mike was going to fire upon it and everyone was going to be behind the corner. And that I was actually kind of looking forward to too, because that would have been a very good way to overcome the trap, right? Like you would it would have hit, it would have exploded, but and then the whole thing would have exploded, but everyone would have still been safe. But then I was like rubbing my hands whenever David was like, I'm going in there. I'm like,
face first.
I mean, like, and again, I don't want to misconvey like an intentionality there where I'm like trying to undermine myself. That's not what's going on, right? Like I'm testing danger. I know there's risk there, et cetera, et cetera. Literally on the Discord today, John and I were chatting with some people about exactly that. Like the like, are you going to touch it? Right. And I was like, well, if John's going to ask, I'm always going to do it. Right. Like, and that is true. And like my response to that in a very brief form was like, a lot of the joy I get, whether it's like intellectual or not, from play is like that kind of dynamic. It's that sort of like, yeah, I will. It will probably fuck me over. Maybe it won't. But a lot of what I love about TTRPGs, about gaming, is that sort of ritual of play. It's that risk. It's that like, oops, whatever. It's there's a collaboration there where I'm not going to be angry in either way, right? Like it's just, that's so rich. It's such a bonding moment. I'm being really saccharine right now, but it's true. It's such a bonding moment for friends. I really believe in that shit in a deep level. And so like, I
give you props because you did it when you're 7th level. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot easier to be like happy-go-lucky whenever you're like first level and you're like, fuck it, I'll just push the button.
Well, here's the thing:
another one just like him.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't give me props because, and this isn't a brag. It's going to sound like a brag, but it isn't. I don't give a shit about the level, right? That is the one. That's the run like brain damage that I have. That's the one thing I don't give a shit. So that's not a risk. Like I give a shit about like there's a reset component there, which is upsetting. There's an aspect of like, oh, I got to like figure out a new sort of rhythm. Yes, there's a lot of like consequence there, and that happens to everyone. It absolutely happens to me as much as I sort of like joke about not caring. The level aspect is not actually a risk analysis.
It's not the level. I meant more like that you've been playing Upior for the longest.
Yeah, it's an investment.
That's not a criticism of you either. No, 100%, right? But like No, it's fascinating.
So I used to drive John crazy because we would be playing like some of the more modern version of D&D.
Yeah.
And I would get bored with my character after like 15 like sessions, and I'd be like, I don't want to play this anymore. I want to play something else. John would be like, no.
You
don't have to worry about that.
And then oops, Mike would fireball himself.
You can just wander down the wrong hallway and die. Like,
100%. You know, it's funny that evokes this is a bit tangential, but for all of the 5e talk, one of my favorite memories of playing with you guys was when we did the 5e play test, and it was like, I don't know what the default, like there was like a caravan and maybe some goblins in the woods. I don't remember.
I remember
how
that.
It was the Mines of Falander.
Yeah. And like what really sold me on 5e out the gate, and I'll say I still like things about it, but like what really sold me, and I think what is one of the best components of it that gets lost a little later on, is like 5e at early levels is still very fucking lethal because it has that OSR component. There's a lot of DNA there that influenced it, right? And one of my favorite memories, dudes, I'm deviating from AV, but was like the caravan get ambushed, right? We're fighting. I was playing like a halfling paladin. I think we maybe
exactly what
pre-rolled it or whatever.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like some goofy shit, right? Yeah. And I remember being like, I think Mike was in trouble. Like I think something in the combat runs. It was. I think it was Mike. I don't think it was Ted. I think it was Mike.
No. I was playing a
Matt, I'm not trying to exclude you.
War, and I got my ass handed to me in the
first
round.
You went down in a round, and I did this like extravagant move, but I was like on the other side of the wagon. And I think I did like a dive under kind of thing, and John permitted it, right? And I was just like wailing in rage after my guy, and I think I went down too, right? And I was like, fuck. 5e's great, right? Like my response to that was like, like having played 3.5 and then Pathfinder and all that, and we loved the shit out of it, right? For all the talk we do about being OSR heads now, like I was so into Theocraft and everything else. And me and Mike are definitely big nerds about that shit. I loved it to death. But the immediacy of that moment for me was like what sold me on 5e, like it's fully right. We can expedite the rest of the sort of experience we had. We played it for many years. It was still a good game. But when we come to OSR and we come to moments like this, it evokes that same thing. Rules neutral, whatever it comes. The outcome, the viscerality. Now I'm like, I'm here again. Like this fucking green shit is exploding in my face. It's so, I mean, in a real way, like that cinematic, not in like we're trying to make like a show, because now we're being recorded, but like outside of it, it's so cinematic, right? It's so like exciting. I just fucking love that shit, man. I love it. It's so exciting. I know, Matt, you have plenty of examples of this too, right? Like,
well, yeah, like the thing that always gets me, and like here's the place that the excitement level that I get. It's that tension between a character that you're playing in a way that realistically that character wants to live, right? Like they're not like, oh, don't, here I go. I'm gonna poke my face into the lasers. But at the same time, as a player, you want to know what's in that leathery sack. Like you want to know what's in there,
baby.
Everybody wants to know what's in the leathery sack. Well, it's right there. But then like that debate, and like this is what takes us, at least me, many times. What takes us so long in making these decisions is that playing that back and forth. Like I want to do it. I want to open this up. This person wants, this character wants to live. Right. Yes. And so, but that somewhere in that Venn diagram of the character and me is like the place where the actual thing is going to happen.
100%. And what I'd say in response to that very briefly, because I'm sure John and Mike have a response to this as well, is like, I do think, it's a complicated subject, right? Like, and again, I'll use not out of arrogance, but out of like just sheer death toll. I'll use myself as an example, right? Like, that friction between like, the meta of I as a player, I'm very intrigued by a thing, right? I still want to like commit to an embodiment. I don't want to like throw. No one ever wants to just throw their character out, right? That's not an incentive, right? You want to take risks that you evaluate on the basis of that risk. You think like maybe this will turn out bad for me, but the curiosity and the play, right? Capital P play is what's really leading there. And I do think an excess of, I don't know, just like we'll call it simulationism, but like of like, I could never let my character die because they would never die, right? Can inhibit the play aspect sometimes. And we all get in that mindset. I for years was in that mindset, right? I was like, I will be the most efficient, successful. I will never fucking die. I will win every encounter. Like a maximalist, fucking theory crafting min-max guy. I was there. Mike can tell you, right? But at the same time, the joy. Well, I did sacrifice a character too, but I maybe a little disingenuous.
David, you're literally like, so I was playing a halfling paladin, and I'm like, you're not a min-maxer, baby. You never have been, and you never will be, because you're willing to play like a halfling paladin.
Your street is gone.
Fair, but in my defense, and this is a long time caster, me versus Mike, not really a contention, right? Mike is very correct in that the way he builds mages is like very lethal. He makes fucking powerful fuck off, fucking, like nuclear disarmament style mages. And I make like weirdos who like break rules, essentially, right? I got 3.5 and Pathfinder, and even there's some dude I remember who made like a Google Docs that was like, here's why a conjuration mage is the best mage, which isn't like a dogma, but I did like really get excited about the idea of a subversion of the like normative, I'll call it physics, right, of the world, right? Like casting illusion magic, casting divination, casting these things takes you out of the standard. Never mind. This is boring. I'm going to stop now. All of which to say is just that like that was still a version of me min-maxing. It was just not a version of me min-maxing within a damage rule set. Right. But where Mike and I align is we are min-maxing with a version of like how we're going to engage with that world, right? In an interesting way. And I enjoyed the shit out of it. But now I do, like, I used the halfling example earlier because I do enjoy that, just like, oopsie. Let's go, right? Like, well, it's fun, man. Let's just fucking go.
The OSC gives you an opportunity to play outside that typical 3.5 or whatever. Oh. That was the wizards that I was playing, was 3.5, where you were flying, immune to missiles, and you could fireball 3 times. It was ridiculous, and that's what David is talking about. But I mean, OSC with the multiple applications of spells is very interesting. What I'm going to say though, David, is that the thing that I enjoyed was Matt and I being able to instigate a crack response team.
That was so cool.
You being like covered in green slime and gross. I'm like, activate my shield, fly and throw lasso. We're like, get you out. Dude, we were on it, man. We were like, we hit that shit like max tack. It was great.
and this is so true, you guys, because like the excitement of that wasn't just that I got shit blew up in my face, but they all came up with such not just a creative solution, but it came so fast.
Yeah, because we've had a lot of practice with you.
Because you're fucking pro. Yeah, because you got to. But no.
Always blowing yourself up.
Fair. But to bring it to the like OSR, we'll say, right, to the creative, like the ways in which like lateral thinking have become just in the like process of us recording AV, right, for all of us equally. Lateral thinking has become more intuitive, right? And it's like a thing where it's like, well, what would make sense here? Is sort of a skill we've exercised, and seeing you engage in it so fucking fast to a crisis is like, it's so thrilling on the receiving end of it. It's fucking exciting, man. Because it does.
What you usually have to do with like a green slime is the expected thing is, if you haven't dealt with them before, is that you waste rounds by attempting to just attack with a D20 and with your sword or something like that, right? And then you realize that nothing is happening. But how long does it take before you realize that nothing is working? And then you run through your different sort of options of like, what do you think can hurt it? And, and what was amazing, and frankly, I mean, it might be your previous experience with D&D, or maybe it was my description of the way that it was moving on the arm or something like that, but you immediately pegged on to the fact that it was fire that would do the job. But if you hadn't done that, it would have gotten really fucking hairy, like really quick.
Well, it was a really cool like back and forth interaction. Like we've talked a lot about like this symbiotic relationship, this back and forth between players and DM, right? Yeah. Like we were playing, like you were as fast on your feet with giving us meaningful information about this, imaginary thing that was going on, that let us adjust, right? Like first, like it was described as like this acid cloud. So we're like, okay, we got to neutralize this acid. And then you're like, well, you know, it's moving around. Like you can see that it's just like on him and like moving and eating him. Like, oh, okay, well, this is not a neutralized acid situation. Right. This is a fight a thing that's eating him situation.
That's exactly why I responded that way. Yeah, because I was worried that you were going to go double down on like finding a base to counteract the acid. I was like, oh shit! By the time they figure it out, it's not going to work.
What is more quintessential of? Again, we keep saying OSR, but we'll just like I'll use it as an abstraction, right? What is more quintessential of the concept of, right? Like I say, like context, not numbers, right? Like there's a version of this that occurs very naturally in a game where it's about sort of like multiplicative damage, like you said. And the assumption there that we might have made a year ago, 2 years ago, naturally, even as like experienced players, of like, I have to hit an 8-point value, etc., would be a logical and correct assumption. But within the quote unquote OSR conversation, within the logic of context, right? John isn't making it easy on us. He's having transparent conversation. And that's what's so fucking interesting about the play style, right? Is like, there's never a point in that interaction, in my opinion, in which he's made it easy on us. He's just being transparent, and we are listening to each other, and we're responding, and we're getting context clues, and you guys make good decisions based on that very quickly, because we've all exercised the muscle of communication. Right. Yeah. And that's fucking rad, dude.
That's actually a good point.
And it's cinematic, right? It's more intuitive because the outcome is actually more dynamic, and it's quick and it's exciting. Even if that isn't the goal, that's the outcome. It's fucking rad, dude. Yeah.
I remember I pivoted from getting ready to cast Neutralize Poison on you. Yeah. Thinking that it was some sort of like, more, mephitic cloud or something like that, like some sort of, aerosol poison. And so I was getting ready to cast Neutralize Poison on you. But yeah, John, like your thing about it moving around, I was like, oh, it's green slime. Yeah. And luckily I've had some experience with that in my life. And so I was like, I just douse him in fire. He'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's the answer.
You know what? It's interesting. One of the things that I'm wondering about is, we've known you guys have known each other longer, but we've all been playing for a long time.
Yeah, all of us ages together, for us right? Now as a group.
And I just wonder, like, so many people are forming new groups, and that's got to be like such a difficult relationship. It's like this timing thing, like this a communication thing, and I wonder if there's any kind of advice that we can give to kind of help, build these relationships quickly with people. Like you imagine, like you're sitting down at the table for the first time with somebody, right? And you don't have years of experience, and you don't have like this kind of like sense of what they're trying to communicate. But how do you get through that as a player, as a DM? Like, how do I, and I've done this at like cons, right? Like, where I'm playing with a new person, I'm trying to like pick up clues. And I don't know.
We're not usually like a GM advice sort of channel or anything like that. But I mean, the answer to that question, I think, would be is all about communication. Like it's not communication. It's asking questions. You got to ask questions, which is a core.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's core to OSR. That's the only way you can survive in OSR. But of course, you should apply that to all RPGs. I should think. But as we said numerous times, I think it's our definition of role playing is it's a conversation, right? That's what it's not play acting. It's a conversation between the GM and the players amongst themselves. And there's actually, Matt, you made me realize, like, I was going to say something and it ties it right in, is that no more do you have to be clear about that you should be asking more questions and being and the GM needs to be so clear and transparent then in combat when the highest stakes are on the table, right? If character death is on the line, like that is the worst possible, that's a very real possible result, and it is the worst one to have happen, then you've got to be very transparent, if especially with the lack of a battle map, right? Which I despise anyways nowadays. But if you're going theater of the mind, there's so much room for questions, and you don't want to have. If you're a GM, you don't want to have like a PC's death on your hands because there was not enough transparency in the giving of information, right? I'm not saying it right, but
no, you said it great. And I would springboard on that real quick, just to say that, like, what we like vaguely ascribe to, like, OSR play, right? Even if we talk about theater of the mind, right? As a like normative aspect of like them versus us, may be true, but every tool, use theater of mind as an example. Every tool that has a deficit that might not fully fulfill a need that we have. Maybe sometimes we wish we had a tactical map, et cetera, et cetera. But a tool that requires, in its absence, better communication trains the group to improve their communication. And that is the takeaway. It isn't that it isn't like on a neutral level, like on an Excel sheet that is an A/B comparison. It is that what will engineer a circumstance, and to answer Matt, right, in which we get better in our muscle of call and response, right? And to one more thing, Mike, and then I'll be really quick. To rewind, like, Matt, I've played with you now about as long as I'd played with John and everyone else prior to you joining. Like, it's been a spell. So we're very, like, seasoned together, right? But something that I think is, like, notable here is, like, we as a group, even prior to you, went through several phases of play styles and systems and such. And what was requisite for us to sort of evolve, I don't mean that pretentiously, but, like, to what we're doing now, is to be able to, like, table what we thought we knew, right? And accept something else, right? Like, learn a new thing, try something else, again, communication is here, be better at communicating in a way that was not familiar to us. And that is such a net positive. And I'll give you a compliment real quick. Matt, you've been so fucking good at that since we started playing. I don't want to just juice Matt this whole fucking detox, but, like, Matt's always been great. He's a brilliant person, clearly. But watching Matt be quicker on that than I ever could be in my life with a new group, which is why you said, like, what do you tell someone in a new group? I think the only answer I would give is being receptive, right? Being open, right? And that openness will make you curious. It'll make you interested. It'll make you malleable, right? Because stiffness, certainty is the anathema of good gaming, I think, right? And your malleability makes you a great player and has made you you've exceeded what, blah, blah, blah. And that, I think that's the advice that I would give to anyone, which is like, you can't determine your group dynamics, but what you can say is, hey, none of us know shit.
Yeah.
In a way, none of us know fucking shit. I've been playing for 20 years, guy, or I've been playing for 2 years, guy. We don't know shit. Let's tabula rasa this. Let's just start from a place of vulnerability and openness and listen. And that gets back to the conversation. We use that in a systemic term, but it's beyond the system. It's human. And I think that is fucking so vital. Anyway, that's my spiel.
Matt, you're so sweet, Matt.
Matt is the best. Matt is the best. Matt is the best.
I have a DM question I want to ask John.
Yeah, ask him.
This is a trait that I have that I'm trying to overcome. So I was running a game for my kids today, and there was this thing in a room that I really wanted it to happen. And so I found myself leading the description in order to get the outcome that I wanted. And then the outcome happened. There were no real dire consequences in the end. The kids pulled it off. I'm not going to get too into details about what it was because it's going to be for the adventure that we're going to, post up after Gary Con and, for them from Gary Con and stuff like that. So, but there was just a thing where I was just like, I really want them to do this one thing, and I want them to find this one area, and I want them to experience this thing. And so I found myself kind of like leading it on. And I just want to know, John, do you give into that too, or do you?
Oh, I definitely feel the temptation. I used to force it, because that was back when I'm creating the narrative and you guys are all just experiencing my narrative, but I've learned since then not to do that. Obviously, I think with secret rooms, especially if you're designing your own, like you were, what's in the secret room needs to be something that is completely extra. It's completely additive, so that if they don't find it, no big deal. But if they do find it, it really is like it's an extra thing. They don't need anything from the secret room to successfully complete the adventure or survive. It's literally like an extra Benny is in there, or access to another room that they could get to via normal means if they looped around in a Jaquays dungeon, right? Which you should always be doing is Jaquaysing, right? Yeah, that's how I deal with secret rooms. Anyways,
I love it.
The temptation is strong, though.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
It's so funny. Like the thing that immediately came to mind when Mike was talking about that is just that recent episode that we just had where, we knocked out the 5 fingers and we mugged them and left them unconscious in a hallway.
Fuck them.
And I know that there's like juicy stuff.
That's a great example. Yeah.
And Kerbal Khan was just like right there. He was ready to talk to us. He's ready to talk. But nope.
That was a hard one. I tried to telegraph as much as I possibly could, and I wanted a certain outcome from it, but it was it was very clear that you were not going for that outcome, and I was like, oh, okay.
That's hard. It's so fucking hard. I mean, this is
hilarious.
A far more reductive version of this. Far more reductive, but to use like my very minimal GM experience in this. I've had so many conversations with my brilliant friends, all of you. Chris Wolf, like other people, right? About like, don't try to railroad an intro to your dungeon, right? Don't try to like create a like sort of cold open, right? Because that will inevitably go wrong. I use that as an example because I still try to do it every goddamn time. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. I should never do it. And it fails every time. I'm going to do it again, right? Like the temptation as a person who's authoring your own thing to create like a contextual intro is so high. And it never really works, right? You should do in media res. You should give them their agency, et cetera, et cetera. But the temptation's always there. I ran a Knave game for 3 of you, for instance. And a thing I wrote was lame. Don't worry about it. But the one thing I was proud of to go to the secret room thing is like I wrote this whole thing and it was more or less like direct them it was very linear. I wish it were more open than it was, but it was. The one, I don't know if you remember this, the one thing I was proud of is I put this like weird room in the middle of the dungeon on the side, which was like a, how to describe it? It was almost like a siren song room where it was like a hallway and you could like be called into it. Do you remember that at all?
Vaguely, yeah.
It doesn't matter. If you don't, it's fine. That was also kind of a trap, but I mean, it literally was, but I was excited about it because it was a moment that had nothing to do to corroborate what Mike's question to John was about the secret rooms. And it can't be like about the main thing. I had railroaded them through this whole thing. Right. And this was like a side thing I did. It was just like a weird moment. And I walked away from that. And I played with y'all. I played with another group. In both instances, the most memorable moment of me running that game was people interacting with that side thing that had nothing to do with everything else I'd written.
There you go.
Right. And it still was a trap. It was still kind of linear. There was still a lot of like problems about it. But I mention it because like the excitement that was born out of them responding to this unexpected thing so exceeded every other thing that I could try to contrive. Right. That I was like, fuck, what am I doing? Right. Like I believe in all the principles. I've read the stuff. I speak the talk, or, I talk the talk, etc. And yet here I am, right. Stumbling through it. And this is the one success I had.
Yeah.
That's
why playtesting.
It's hard to write shit.
That's why playtesting is so key. Like you've got to
100%
constantly be testing out this stuff because you got to see what's hitting with players and what's not. You know what I mean? Because that one you may have like if you had seen that written down, you may have just said it's not really useful. I'll excise it, But then you play it and you realize like this is what they're responding to, right? Yeah.
Literally, that was the biggest response I got, and it was the thing that I was like, oh, that'd be kind of a fun little moment, and I tacked it on, right?
I think for me, man, it's like as when I'm DMing, and it's for me, it's very rare, right? But when I'm DMing, it's like I want to have fun too.
Oh yeah.
And when they miss the cool thing or they bypass the cool thing, I'm like, well, that's not fun for me, you fuckers. And then I'm like, no, really, you should probably check this out. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink,
I don't think that's a bad intuition, John, or Mike. Sorry, go, John, though.
I do need to stop because it's getting really late. But
right.
But if you indulge me and let me like just have like the quick last thought.
I'd love to hear
it. What I do in that situation, Mike, which I totally get, because it should be understood, and I've said this 1,000 times, is that the DM is just as much a right to have fun as everybody else, and it is everybody else's responsibility to help in the effort to have the GM have fun, and that's where I think, Mike, that you should. You may have to like draw that out of people like who aren't used to the OSR play style or young kids or something like that, but you need to be deriving your pleasure from the actions that the players are doing. I think is like the primary source of where the pleasure should come from is, but that requires your players to be active and, have lots of agency and surprise you with the things that they do. I get more joy out of like seeing you guys interact with something that seems to be relatively mundane on the page of Arden Boole, than I do from, like delighting in like, I can't wait till they get to this room sort of thing, which is also fun. Don't get me wrong, but, I always had this preconceived notion of what's going to happen when they get into like a crazy room, and then you guys always fucking throw it out the window, and it goes, which makes it all the more enjoyable. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that's why you should always embrace random encounter tables too, because it's like there's so much fun to be derived from unforeseen stuff, as a GM. So, anyways,
I think a little bit you're underselling the emergent stuff you've played into there too, but I 100% agree with John saying it's hard to know what you want until you're in it.
Yep, 100%.
I can't wait till I get the PDS for Arden Boole and find out that sack was really just kittens and John fucked us.
You guys are going to be.
I'm going to get that fucking thing and I'll be like, oh, shocker! After our 3-year Eberron campaign, in which John, as much as he's self-effacing about it because it's like an old play style, John wrote this fucking brilliant, railroad or not, brilliant campaign. I want him to make it a movie. Levels and brilliant.
Well, that's the kind of railroad it was.
I'm not bullshitting. John is an incredible writer.
But regardless, like I'm very much looking forward to you guys getting your hands on that module, because you guys are going to rip me a new one when you start diving into it.
I can't wait. Anyway, that's all we need. All right, go fuck yourselves. All right.